We're the Young Indie Chroniclers podcast, and we're producing a new feature-length documentary, George Lucas, The Lost Golden Age.
George Lucas was going to do this Lawrence of Arabia scale epic on a 16-millimeter budget.
You got a chance to have the same adventure making the show as what Indy was doing.
His stuff is really quite political.
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
I learned that when George says he wants to ultimately change or fix something, that he was going to do it.
We built a Kickstarter campaign to support the film. Late pledges are available now at Kickstarter.com.
Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hey everybody, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. We are thrilled to continue our Maul conversations here as we're going to discuss episodes 7 and 8 this week from the series, and I've been loving it so far. I hope that you have been too, because we really get into the nitty-gritty in this episode as we start to get some more of the concrete plan that Maul is developing here, and just kind of how it all fits into the larger Star Wars galaxy overall. So I hope you're here for a great conversation, a great ride, and of course we have a guest. It is Greg McLaughlin from the Rebel Base Card podcast, and it's a real thrill to have him back on the show as we just really have a blast talking about all things Maul, and look forward to chatting with you, or at least continuing the conversation in some way, shape, or form with you all on this journey here. So with that, let's get into some news from the Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent galaxy over this past week, and we did get a little bit because Maul Shadow Lord finale episodes 9 and 10 comes out on May 4th, so tomorrow at the time of the release of this episode. Don't forget, Wednesday, May 6th is also the release of Star Wars Celebration tickets, so if you're trying to go, this is the time to that's the time to get tickets. Make sure you're in line, make sure you know what you're doing, and go in and get some tickets, and love to see you there. We did get a first wave of celebrity guest announcements for Star Wars Celebration, and they include none other than Hayden Christensen, Ian McDiarmid, Anthony Daniels, D. Bradley Baker, and Michelle Ang. So a lot of crossover between the films and the animated shows to this point so far for that group. So definitely going to already shaping up to be an incredible celebration for 50 years of Star Wars at that convention. There's also going to be, or at least we know there's going to be a game release for Star Wars Galactic Racer, but we got an official release date, that being October 6th. So if you're a fan of kind of like that racing scene that Star Wars has been doing, this is definitely the place for you, and the game for that, of course, too. So be on the lookout for that, as of course probably more details will come out about just generally all that kind of probably some more trailers, some more interviews with like the team behind the scenes on that front. And just generally everything regards to that game and in the lead up to that October release date. Additionally, we're in the middle of what you would call like May 4th weekend, Star Wars weekend, as some people have dubbed it appropriately. So with that, there are a lot of deals online for a variety of different platforms, games, books, other merchandise sites. So just go to StarWars.com, and they generally have a list of all the places that you can get deals for Star Wars merchandise around the globe. And lastly, I did want to note that with The Mandalorian and Grogu coming out at the end of May, there will be, or currently there is, if you go to your local Burger King, some cross-promotional items, whether it be some toys or just the actual, like, the cups and the holders for French fries and all that stuff are kind of Mando and Grogu themed. So go check that out. Go support. It's a fun little crossover that we haven't really seen the likes of since, I would say, probably the Denny's menu with Solo: A Star Wars Story. So some pretty fun stuff happening all throughout this month, and stay tuned to Force Ghost Conversations as we continue to get more updates about all this different kinds of media that's coming around the corner here for Star Wars and beyond. So with that, folks, why don't we get into our main topic discussion for this episode? And while we're at it, make sure you've watched Maul. episodes 7 and 8 at the very least. This is a spoiler conversation. I don't want you to miss out on it, or at least to be, spoiled by all that to this point. So make sure you've seen the episodes. Come right back to this point in time. You've been forewarned. And with that, let's get into our main topic discussion. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, your cozy home for deep dive discussions into all things Star Wars. And we're just about at the end of Maul Shadow Lord. We are at episodes 7 and 8 that we're talking about here this week. And we're almost at the precipice of where even the people with screeners don't even know what's happening. Like, I don't think they got screeners for 9 and 10. So next week is a full blank slate. But we're here to talk about everything up to that point, and particularly what happened in last week's set of episodes. And we have a guest, returning guest, back to the show. We have Greg McLaughlin from the Rebel Base Guard podcast. Greg, how are you doing? And welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations.
Doing all right. Thanks for the invite. And it's just, hey, my wave isn't, I don't see anything on my waveform. Am I?
I can see it. You're fine.
Oh, okay. Just doing great. It's a busy weekend going into, not only the Maul season finale, but we have May the 4th. Today as we're recording, we have free comic book day, which is always the first Saturday in May. Here we had a Chicago Non-Sport Card Show. That's back. And then, of course, more importantly, hello, Burger King meals are back in preparation for the Mando movie, which is coming out later this month. And so I can't take credit for this line. Someone gave it to me, but I'm like, this is the May. This is the May, and it's I'm excited. We're only just in May, but I'm already excited for the month.
Yeah, me too. Wow. I mean, when you spell it out like that, that is a lot in like 4 or 5 days here. And I hope that folks, this will come out in the midst of the May 4th precursor weekend. May 4th will be on Monday. So Sunday, May 3rd is when this technically comes out. And there's a lot of deals happening online as well, folks, right? So like just about it, if you can think of a place that may have a Star Wars connection, just go check it out because they may have some sort of sale running. And this is the time to pick up any kind of cool thing that you may have been trying to get for Star Wars recently. Like I know all the gaming sites are running massive sales on Star Wars games. If you haven't picked up those in the last couple of years, I mean, I just picked up Jedi Academy for $3 on the Xbox store this past week. And that was awesome. Like Greg said, free comic book day, like all this at the same time. Plus, go to your local Burger King while you're out shopping too, and get some Mando and Grogu. I believe it's some toys and just the whole like special menu items too associated with all that. It's a fun, almost prequel-esque way of of marketing the movie at this point, which I think is in line with how I expect the film to go. And I just saw the trailer again on the big screen last night, and excited to get towards the end of the month here. I've taken off work for 2 days to I will be seated at my local theater on that Thursday, and I'll be there from that first showing at 3:00 p.m. in the afternoon all the way through probably midnight, just get my 3 screenings in that day, and then crack of the morning on Friday I'll be recording with your co-host Greg Cass about because I assume he'll probably see it 3 times that day too. And maybe have another 3 because I think the AMC blockage is they end on like a Thursday, so the new week starts on Friday. So if you time it right, you can do your 3 or 4 for your stubs, and then you can see another 4 the following day. So he might have many screenings for that over the next couple of days there. So have him on for that. You folks, you can be looking forward to that as well in the pod. But yeah, so much is happening in the Star Wars world right now, and a good way too, right? This isn't the I think we can probably name, probably last year at this time, right, was a really rough. Yes. I wouldn't say rough in the sense of like, wow, it's horrendous. I can't fathom this kind of thing. But in terms of so much happening at once with content coming out, like this is much more manageable and more fun, I might say, as people that cover this kind of stuff as we're going here.
Well, and something even else, and we didn't even think about, but then the following day, was it May 5th or 6th, we have Star Wars Celebration tickets that are going
the 6th. That's
on
right.
sale.
Yes. So early.
So, it's an intense number of days, but I don't think we had so last year we had a lot of shows that were kind of going on
at the same time in Celebration, just like a week before too.
And so it's a lot to kind of take in. I think maybe this year we might be a little more prepared for it, but I would say it's fun because it kind of comes in between, right? And so normally we would have, Labor Day weekend we're all kind of looking forward to, but with this and the fact that it kind of falls over Free Comic Book Day, it's a nice precursor. And I love the fact that even in the shop I got to go to where the 501st came out and Mando Mercs and all that kind of came out, you're going, this is kind of fun and it's a nice ease into. And then, right, yeah, as Greg and I were talking as we were recording the Breakfast Pack, we were both kind of doing a little local. So there was a guy, I think it was Man Can Draw on Etsy, that were doing some really gnarly pins that kind of looked like the Adorables. And so I got a Gonk pin. I'm like, yeah, the Gonk pin's happening. And so what I also like is a lot of your makers are out there. And, if you don't find what you want, I mean, there's plenty to do on the stuff that's, mass market toys and collectibles, but there's also some great, get on Instagram because I'm sure you're going to see a lot of ads for it, and throw them. They're certainly far cheaper than trying to go out and buying some trading cards these days. But also, whether it's Free Comic Book Day or anything like that, supporting your local comic store or record store,
very important
or maker is super important because these folks put a lot of passion into what they do. And it's just fun to kind of play along and see what all these folks come up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, just right now, folks, just speak the word Star Wars into your phone. So as it's listening, you can start getting those targeted ads, as well as just your algorithm starts shifting, because this is a time where it's going to be a lot in the ether in regards to Star Wars. And so much is going to be happening over the next month here. And it's exciting and it's a good time too. I think we're both in the same agreement here that last year was a little much, and now we've reached an amount that we're acceptable to have. Right? It's not like they're also dropping Tales of the Bounty Hunters tomorrow or on Monday, along with the finale of Maul, right? And then Mando Grogu coming at the end of the month, and let's throw in a documentary series as well in here, right? And then none of that is just taking place all at the same time again. So it's a good time. We're fortunate, and we're here. Maul still going on. Can't forget about the main juice right now. We're already an eye towards that Mando Grogu big theatrical experience at the end of the month here. But this Maul series has been kicking butt every single week here, right? Whatever expectations I had going into this thing has been exceeded and then some, right? And it's been the things that I have expected the least to that have actually enjoyed the most, I think. And it's those supplementary characters. It's Janix being both a character in this and a place. How now that we're just about all the way through, what are your feelings and reactions overall to the show at this point?
I think as we have talked before, whether it's on your show or ours, regarding what Disney Plus has done right or what Lucasfilm has done right or wrong with Star Wars, you cannot argue that animation has just gone to another level. Yeah. I mean, as much as the Clone Wars and Rebels and even, the Resistance, which I loved, but, wasn't well received, but I would say that they have just absolutely killed it on animation. If you're thinking about, the tales of the Bad Batch, letting people play with visions, and with this, and where you take something that is very familiar to us, Maul is the gift that keeps on giving, with the style of animation with the Clone Wars. But you said, you know what? Hey, we found a new toy in the toolbox and we just made it that much better. And I am so surprised how much I have fallen in love with this animation that I'm familiar with, but it just looks so much more. There's so much more passion and love that you can tell has been put into this. And the writing of this series, the voices, the sounds, it's really just came out with a bang. And to know that we've got another season, hopefully more after that, is the icing on the cake. This has been an awesome experience so far.
Agreed. Another season, and we still have another 2 episodes to go. And
exactly,
I love that the people haven't seen screeners of it yet, right? The folks that are on those access lists that are, tweeting out every week, "You're not ready for this," kind of deal. And because that gives me the expectation of wow, we're not only are we all experiencing this at the same time, right? There's no chance of a spoiler leaking out or anything like that, but they held it back for a reason, right? They really wanted to protect whatever secret is within next week's episodes, if whatever there could be. So let the speculation run wild and healthily, of course, but that's just a fun thing that I have where I'm like, okay, we're going to go all in this and we're just going to experience it on live, basically as live TV as possible, folks. And it'll be a fun time for that. But Greg, I want to start off our conversation with leading off to where the end of last week's episode was. And we don't really get an answer in this episode clearly and distinctly as to who and what Merrick was talking to at the end of last week's set of episodes. It's part of the little tease that they do previously on Maul Shadowlord, but it's not really addressed at all in this one. And we know that the 11th brother, Crow, does appear in this set of episodes and really helps Merrick to really take down Maul, knock him down a size or two. Who do you think do you have any further speculation or thoughts? I know on last week's Rebel Base card, that was kind of one of the big questions that everyone was trying to dive into there. And there's some theories and possibilities there. But first off, are you upset that we didn't get a definitive answer? Do you think we'll get it next week? Where's your betting line going on this one right now?
Well, I do like the fact that we didn't necessarily find out, right? Our lizard brain really wants to know right away. It's I want the pellet. Give me the pellet.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that I think the Inquisitorius is a constant learn. There's always new stuff about it, and I think that's only making the case, as we kind of discussed, to let's get a book. Let's get another book going. Let's get I know that they have there's kind of one out there, but I mean you'd really love to see a guidebook on him. Come on, DK, get this in check. Let's go. But yeah, I mean, I had money on the Grand Inquisitor. Okay, not money, but I'm I had my thing was on the Grand Inquisitor.
You went to Polymarket and put money down on.
Oh yes. What's off the table as far as that kind of stuff is? But yeah, the Emperor was still out there, the Grand Inquisitor, Darth Vader, or was it just the 11th brother himself?
It could have been, yeah.
And I like that. I think going into a series, we were wondering what's going to be new. Some of this could be ground, but we have found that there's a lot more to Maul than we thought in this. These 2 episodes really gave us even more, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think also, there's still plenty of ground that we don't know. But, who's disappointed in this series? I want to know. Maybe I don't want to know because I'm nah, you guys don't like me. Maybe I don't want to hang out with you folks. This is not just Disney Plus, grandstanding. This is good. This is solid stuff. And I think other than maybe a little, famously a little disdain for Dacky at this point, he's coming up a little short. That's not a short joke on him. He's just he's falling a little short of my expectations. But other than that, yeah, we're just getting so much. But, you wonder, I mean, could necessarily we may not get revealed at all. And that, I think it's on the table as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the question. Does it matter? Right. Are we looking into it too much? Right. The big question or the big point is that he alerted to somebody that Maul's presence is here and confirmed it. And also, I need some backup. Therefore, the 11th brother comes in, and seemingly they handle the job as far as they know, at least to a large degree, right? We'll get into the specifics of that in a little bit here, but yeah, if I'm you, and I'm putting I should say I'm with you on this front, right? I believe in your discussion in last week's set of episodes with the group, the awesome Avengers assembled group that you had on the Rebel Base card. I am of the same mind too, that there's probably a hierarchy of command, right? Like, and people, we had people on the show talking about this the last couple of weeks here on Force Ghost Conversations, and they're very much of the mindset of it's Vader, it's the Emperor, and I'm like, you really think that Merrick just has a direct line to to like the higher ups? Like, you think he's really bothering them with any and every thing, unless it's Kenobi, right? Like, that would be the only thing I think Vader is like a very like you go directly use the red phone if that's the case. Or maybe as I'm talking into this here, maybe Maul is that one that Palpatine's like, that's the one that I really need taken care of. Like, that's a loose end for me, but I just don't see that being the case. Like, he's so busy.
Well, and here's the thing, and I think you may have just put the button on what makes sense. The whole time, Two Boots was talking to Lawson, going, there's protocol. If this shows up, you call it in.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say that they don't have the same thing going. If it's this, you call in, and they were actually the ones doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
The Janix guys weren't doing their job. Lawson wasn't doing his job, but Merrick was. And it's just been there in front of us. And this is one of those where, there's a red phone, like the old Apple stores used to have a red phone that you would call Cupertino if the genius couldn't figure it out. I think this is exactly the case. Now that you kind of talk about it, you go, yeah, why not? And especially given the fact that maybe the 11th brother wasn't necessarily, it's like, maybe he's not over him like we were thinking. Maybe it's just one of those going, if you do this, then you draw the, draw true Inquisitors card in our Galactic Uno game, and then go from there. And then that just goes, and then, they're just better at following directions.
So in these set of episodes, everything really falls apart, right? This is like the breaking point for, I guess, the crew, if you want to call like Lawson, Diodaki, Riley, Devin, like that, a sort of makeshift group, right? As well as the Maul clan, the Shadow Collective, perhaps. I think it would be the correct way to define them right now. Both of these groups really hit their rock bottom of sorts in many ways, right? Riley is captured by the Empire and then questioned by the Inquisitorius to the point that Lawson is willing to sacrifice himself. And basically there's some inner turmoil within the Maul Shadow Collective. These are mercenaries. They are trying to get paid, and that matters more than survival. And Maul's grand plan that we kind of get a little bit more insight into as a result of what he's trying to do, which is ultimately take out Palpatine, right? This is a good lesson in like thinking through what is feasible given the boot that's over all of our heads at any moment in time when there's an authoritative force such as this. And I think one of the big MVPs in this set of episodes for me, I want to get your take on this here, is Two Boots, because like you're mentioning, he is such a protocol character to this point, except that he has it kind of in his programming to not be a part of protocol because he loves having his two boots, which he's informed later is not a part of Imperial standard uniform for droids. And then he's forced to remove them. And that kind of starts that process there of him recognizing that maybe this isn't all it's cracked up to be. What did you think of Two Boots in this episode? And did he win you over a little bit more? Because he had kind of lost me a little bit there based off of his unwillingness to see with his eyes what was in front of him.
On the one hand, I could see that, but I also, I think his point of view represents maybe a view of the Empire, like they're there to protect us. They're there to bring more. And then you start to kind of go, oh, this is actually happening. And the fact that the series, I think, has let him have time with this, right? It's not a very quick, it's not like, so I think his character has been consistent and probably will get, for however long the character has. I mean, like when you're looking at the crew now going, well, we've got a finale coming up. Not everybody may make it out of here, but I would say that, they've been, with the fact that he's worn the boots and that he's had he has the calf, although he can't drink it, does show that he had that built in, like he kind of wanted this is where he kind of was kind of wanting to kind of be perceived as. But I think I think it would have been inconsistent if the droid just kind of turned on a dime and not had some of these traits in his programming or just in his existence. And so I do think that I like how he's moved along. Of course, I love the voice. Richard does an amazing job voicing him. But I think it adds, we're still not quite sure what he's capable of doing or what he's willing to do. But just like with Riley and Brander, there's no going back. And even with our two Jedi, we've turned a point, and now it's going to be survival and what happens. And I think that's an interesting turn that we'll see what each of these, what they're capable of in order to survive.
Yeah. I'm so interested, especially for next week's episodes, because they've now created this kind of basically crew of sorts, right? And there's that loose thread of the ex-wife that's a part of the Empire. I'm like, is she the way out here? Like, is she going to put bygones away to save her son, and potentially her, like, the father of her child, right? I am so intrigued by that storyline. Put a pin on that, folks. We'll address that next week, hopefully, if we get more answers here. But yeah, I think the two boot side of things is a really interesting turn of events here. And I'm excited to see how that plays out more, if it does at all, or maybe that's just the end of like that turn there for him. But yeah, I'm intrigued on that front. But also to your to what we were kind of getting at is about. So that's like one storyline that's going on at the same time. But at the other end is the Maul Shadow Collective, right? And they're in this like makeshift base of sorts, like this emergency kind of like, we'll strew this together, we'll regroup, we got our ship off world kind of deal. And then the Empire finds them. And it's not an inept Empire at this point either. This isn't the stormtroopers from Star Wars Rebels that are missing point blank every character. And they basically destroy about 95% of the mercenaries, bounty hunters, and group members that were a part of Maul's team at that point, right? It's very much at the end of everything once they finally regrouped after the end of episode 8. And then there's that other cliffhanger that we'll talk about. There's like 4 or 5 people left, including Maul and Rook Kast and Ludi Vario and like maybe 2 others or something that are in the background. Like, Maul's got nothing at this point. He's got no Padawan. Like, everything that he's kind of hedged all of his bets on is that Devin will convert here. He's got all of his hired probably some loyal ones from the Mandalore days still, like a Rook Kast. His Zabrak kin that he had picked up along the way, and maybe some others from the other work that he's done. But it's wild that this is it. Like, and for a character that to this point had been pretty much unstoppable, they had found a way to stop him, and it was through the force of the I wouldn't say the force of the Empire, but the sheer amount, the massive number of troops that they can put out there, right? And it's like, it goes back to something like the Clone Wars showcases, is that there is only so much that a Jedi can do when they're overwhelmed, right? I think like that's the thing. Is like, okay, we'll see the Jedi in the Phantom Menace, right? And it's Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and they're just running through all these droids. And then people are like, well, how do all the Jedi die? And it's partially because of the surprise of Order 66, but they do a good job in the Clone Wars of establishing that even Jedi are not infallible to like 50 blaster bolts being shot at them at the same time. And that's what this episode highlights a lot more. And there is also the aspect that there's now 2 Inquisitors, and they've highlighted that Maul's legs are not working as well as they once did because of the battles that have happened. There is a cost to the things that have been happening so far. What did you make of that kind of duel that Maul experienced with Merrick and the 11th brother towards the end? It's a majority part of episode 7 there, but what did you think about all that?
What I like is that, we saw when Daki was able to, or, when Maul was injured the first time, and that, his knee was injured, and then you saw him kind of do that kind of work out once it was repaired. I think that kind of sets you up for him getting a more severe wound. And at some point you kind of go, is it a weakness for him, as opposed to like, when you see Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back get hit on the shoulder, but it doesn't really seem to do that much. So it inserts a little bit of a realism to it and go like, this is something that an Inquisitor or someone battling Maul would obviously go after, because you need to kind of exploit a weakness. I mean, this is like sort of like the Inquisitor version of like sweep the leg.
That's exactly it. Yes, totally right.
But I think that that starts a cycle, as we'll probably get into, where Maul has to kind of question himself. But I thought it was very realistic to go, look, there was the Inquisitors that seemed to go down pretty easy in Rebels. I think that's probably as far as Inquisitors going down. Rebels dispatched them fairly quickly. It was Obi-Wan Kenobi that you started to see it felt like a little tougher and a little more savage. And so in this point you go, this is these guys are a threat, and they're not playing around, and they're going to go straight for it. And they have that sort of competitive nature within themselves. They're not fully Sith, but they're the Sith
adjacent,
Sith adjacent. And they're not going to, they have goals and means, and that's probably what helped make them Inquisitors to begin with. So I think what we saw was a really good one. And of course, it's just so beautifully done in the animation that you go, this is great. And like I said, it just sets off a spiral of events. But I feel like, this is what I kind of expect. And I'm glad we're going here to see what happens next.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad that, like, I think I mentioned on the episode I guested on for Rebel Base Card at the beginning of this, where we're like, we had a lot of, I think maybe 2 or 3 good Maul hallway sequences where he took out everybody with relative ease. And I mentioned then that, that you can only do that so many times before it gets cheapened, right? And if Maul is just like an OP character versus everybody else and has no difficulties along the way, then what are we doing here? What's the point of this show? The fact that he has these leg impalements and there's 2 Inquisitors and he's struggling here and he's at his weakest moment here just adds more gravity to the show that we're seeing right now. It adds more stakes, it adds more depth. We need to see people lose and be fallible so that those things, when they do actually achieve their goals or have victories or defeat other enemies, like, it means more. And that's what the show now has to an nth degree higher than where we were when we started. That is the arc right there. It shows that Maul is more human and fallible than what we expected him to ever possibly be. Right. And that, I think that is a testament to what the show is able to do when, I think we hear all the time, hey, we should have a Maul show. And I don't think people really think, I think they want that like badass hallway sequence a few times. And then, like all things, right, if you give a person a whole sleeve of Oreos, right, by the end of that sleeve, they're like, wow, I really regret eating all of those. And that would be the same deal. It would just, the return of investment would just completely dwindle to the point that you're like, it doesn't even faze me anymore. And now that we have this kind of added additional stakes into things, it just makes the show a lot more interesting.
Well, you can also make an interesting comparison, as I was thinking about what you're saying, is let's compare this to Book of Boba Fett. A classic character everybody loves that you could argue like has how much runway they have, right? I mean, where Maul, we kind of know where Maul begins and ends, and we kind of know mostly what his motivations are. But the same way, it's like, with Mando kind of taking a lot of oomph out of what the Book of Boba Fett may have been or could have been. It's like, here's 2 very similar situations, and it's interesting how they're handling it. Be that here nor there about how, whether you like or dislike the Book of Boba Fett or all that kind of stuff. But it is interesting that maybe there are some lessons that they did pick up to go, look, here we are taking a kind of a character, a beloved character that people really like. And this seems to be going very well, with very little exception.
Yeah. Well, and it shows that these characters need to be tested, right? And what are the ways that we can test them? And it's by figuring out the why behind Maul. What is his motive? What is his motivation? And we learn that kind of to a larger degree in this episode, whether it's in the conversation with Devin and Riley when they're walking to the destination, is that it's all about revenge. You will get your revenge on Palpatine. He casts you aside, and that's all of the problems that exist in your life are because of him. Channel everything that you have into that. And that's a dangerous kind of approach, especially if you're thinking about, all right, in real life, right? These are fun action adventure stories that we see on a weekly basis that we take themes from and ingest them and to make ourselves be better people. If I'm watching this, as I am now, and I watch Maul and I see that he's like blaming one particular person for everything that's gone wrong in his life, rather than growing and learning, hey, that happened, I'm not going to engage with that. I'm going to focus my energy and effort. Like, how much better could Maul be if he diverted his energies elsewhere at this point in time? If he, instead of just trying to build up this, like, it seems like, in my opinion, based off what I gander here, he's trying to develop an underground army that he can then lead an attack against Palpatine for and then take him out. And that's how he's going to unearth and defeat the Empire through that means. And he's trying to, at least to Devin, right? That's his next level of seduction here, is like, hey, we will actually have meaning and significance and importance we will destroy the Empire together. Even though it's based in this personal vendetta that is, I just really want to take out Palpatine. I don't care about the Empire generally. It's ultimately, he is the top of that. And then through that, the trickle down effect is that there will not be theoretically an empire afterwards, even though there probably would still be of some sort. You take out the head, there's going to be someone that takes over. It'd be Vader at that point, right? And unless you took out Vader too, but that's a whole other diatribe on that front there. But it's interesting that is still that event in Clone Wars is the death of Savage Opress, and the feelings of being left alone and cast aside are still with him all these years later, and that is his main focal driving point. And that's the reasoning behind every single choice and decision that he makes. Seemingly, it's still going to be the same decision and choice that he makes, or everything that's behind everything when we see him in Solo, a Star Wars story just a few years down the line. And then, arguably, it's still probably the same reasoning for everything when we find him on Malachor at Star Wars Rebels. And I was thinking earlier today, we never got an answer to actually why he's on Malachor. And I know that from just why Ezra and Kanan and Ahsoka go there is to find the answers to defeat the Sith, if I recall, right? That's like the drive for them. And it's like, is that why Maul was there too? Was he thought that maybe he could find out the secrets to defeating the Sith, aka Palpatine, in that sequence there, and then who knows why he was left behind or how he got there and all that stuff. And we know an Inquisitor was hunting him down at that same time too. Did he get dropped off 2 weeks before? How has he been eating? I don't know. Those are larger questions for other people and canon to figure out. But ultimately, he's there. So I've been going down that path there. I'm like, man, this is just adds further to the tragedy of Maul in some ways, is that he has constantly been like Vader, like these dark side users. They put all their energy into one thing, and it's like, if I can just get rid of them, then my life will be better, rather than just like choosing to ignore them and focus on other things. Like, what can they control? What can't they control? Like, that's something they can't control, is just trying to take out one person. And it hinders them from achieving true whatever they want to achieve in their life, like nirvana, achieving some sort of peace and prosperity, anything like that. There's just nothing at the end of that tunnel. What do you think about the Maul plan at this point?
I think it's been given. It's interesting because you can also see some similarities with Baylan Skull in Ahsoka, where he just sees it's a cycle that repeats and repeats, and he's ready for whatever comes next. Whether or not that he's there at the end, I think he's very interested in, this is my opportunity to bring this cycle to an end. Maul doesn't Maul wants to, take out the Emperor, but he hasn't really. It's sort of like the dog chasing the car. Once the dog catches the car, what do you actually do with it? But until then, it's very driven. But I do think that, in the middle of this episode, during Maul's vision quest, when he has those flashbacks,
his journey through the desert, if you will.
Exactly, and he sees the reflection. He sees what happens. He can see a repeat of his youth about getting tempted by the Emperor to get brought in. Like you see Savage there, and I thought really helped me kind of bond, because I always thought of like Savage, like okay, yeah, that's fine, but here you really see that bond and how much he cared, and he was like, don't follow. But then, as we were kind of discussing this, we really see a cycle of abuse. And you go, you know what? Yeah, it kind of injects maybe a little real world into it. But I mean, so face it, the Emperor grooms. And that is just, it's one of those for his own means. And they train through pain to try to bring out, the emotion and the strength of it. And you go, wow. But it was, to see Maul go through that, this cycle of he's just really down and out. But that, when he says those words, like, I'm sorry, to a younger version of himself. And of course he says, I won't let this to happen to anybody else. And I'm like, that is so powerful. And it really brings that and go, you know what a great way to add something to something we already knew, that we already, like, it's well-trodden ground. But this series and this moment has added so much more to it, and it has crystallized it. And you go, all right, I don't maybe agree with what you're doing, but I definitely can understand where you're coming from.
Well, we agree with the end goals, right? But it's how to get there, right? Are we utilizing fear, anger, hate, destructive paths and tendencies to get to that end goal of defeating the Empire, which is kind of the way that he's going about this here. He's creating his own separate rebellion of sorts through this underground conglomerate of what eventually will become Crimson Dawn, as far as we know, right? And it would just be Crimson Dawn. I don't know if he adds any others to his portfolio. But it'll be interesting, again, as we get further on, more seasons of this point here, to add to this mythology that is Maul. And that was a powerful moment where he's like, I'm sorry, I won't allow this to, like, that's his motivating drive there, is like he feels for the kid in front of him that's still inside of him that didn't really have a choice. It doesn't seem like he had a choice at all. I think that's confirmed too. I think Mother Talzin was like, hey, you're going. We have a deal. He's taking you. Goodbye. See you later. And like we saw, there was much abuse in that relationship, which I think proves probably the fact that Maul was always going to be cast aside. He was never really the apprentice that will eventually take over. He was always the stepping stone, which is different when you see how, like, literally from the start with Anakin, Anakin Skywalker, we'll watch your career with great interest. That kind of deal. Complete 180 of how he handles those relationships, because he's like, he's like grooming, right? I am really laying the seeds for this one. Like, this is the end game right here, is this little kid here. I have strong feelings about what this one is going to end up at, which just that again adds to this further tragedy of, wow, what could Maul have been? Yeah, it's, of course, he's still based in this character that's mired in his look of like, wow, he does look like the devil. But are devils created, or are they born? Which they aren't born; they're created. And he was, and that's what those kid moments show, is like, okay, that is just who knows what he could have ended up being. And we're assuming based off of look, like what we inject into that. And he doesn't have to be that. He can be his own person. He can choose to be good. He can choose to be anything else that he wants to be. But it just adds to that further tragedy that we then end up getting to later on, right? If it's not Maul or Palpatine, right? It's the next thing, which is Kenobi, right? Oh, he's still alive? Well, he's the reason that, it's just it shifts there, right? I'll put all of my hate and malice into this thing. And if I take him out, then then it'll be all good for me and solid and dandy. And I think it just, when you get all this into the equation, it makes that sequence not more sadder. And I think it makes it sadder in many ways. But there's also like this peace to some degree when he's like, he will avenge us, right? It's not revenge; it's avenge. Right, at that point,
good point.
That final line that he says to Kenobi when he's dying. So I think this just makes everything better in canon. I don't know. I don't have really a better way of explaining it, but when you, like we are, thinking through all the through lines of how these characters interact in this larger conglomerate saga of things, wow, these pieces really are starting to fall into place here. And I think I am along and excited to be a part of this journey.
I think it'll only get better when we get to the end of the series, whether that's a 2 or a 3 season arc or even beyond that, because I think that you have a lot of folks who are taking great care with this character, and because it's animation, they really get to paint with a very broad palette.
Yeah.
And we have their beginning and end point, so we don't have to kind of like move people along only to go, oh yeah, well, you ran out of, no, I think that you have points where you can take them to, and you can help fill in. And wouldn't it be something if we get on the more Crimson Dawn side of things, that we get a little bit of, love on the Solo front, and you go, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't Dryden Voss be awesome to see? Or Paul Bettany to get in and do some voice work. There's so much here. You could really have some fun with it. And like I said, would you rather have a series when Disney Plus and Lucasfilm, know what the stakes are, and you go, you know what, let's get a little more focus, and now we know what the score is, and we're going to work within those. But boy, when everybody is focused on, man, we got to start really cooking this. It really makes you excited. Like I said, for us, the jury's still very much out on live action and movies, but this one really, they seem to, they are hitting it on all cylinders here, and it's going to be fun. This is good. This is very good.
Agreed. Well, you've hinted at the cliffhanger for this week's episode already. So for the folks at home, there is a call that comes to Ludi Vario, who requests an audience with Maul, and that being Dryden Voss, who we know as kind of the head of Crimson Dawn, I guess. We're still kind of figuring out all the details for what this all is. Yeah, for now. And who we will see played by Paul Bettany in Solo, A Star Wars Story. What do you think of that call, Greg? What do you think Voss's aims are in this matter? And what do you think it all means for the finale that we're heading into next week?
It's interesting that, we've already kind of talked about the fact that, Brander and Riley, they're done on Janix. There's no going back. As much as you can disbelieve just how many stormtroopers have perished, for however competent they are, maybe this is one of those things. The reason why stormtroopers are not as competent is because all the good ones were mowed down in Maul Shadowlord. The body count's getting really high. But at some point, you feel like we're probably going to need to get out of here and move on to the next story, because there's not much left for Janice for any of them, other than, I forget, Brander's lady friend, who I'm like, I think that would have been a little more interesting to kind of, maybe we hopefully see a little more. I don't want her character arc to end much like in Book of Boba Fett. It's like, Matt, was it Madame Garza?
Yeah, Garza Fwip.
Garza Fwip, who came.
Rena Soul is the character in this show.
I really want to see more of her, but I do think that we would be all doing ourselves a favor to move along and see some of the other parts of this. I mean, they don't all go down as quick as the Pikes, I'm sure. But you like seeing how this connects. Yeah. And I think that there was an appetite, as much as Solo may have not gotten its proper due. I think a lot of the settings and a lot of the characters, boy, it could get really interesting. And especially, as we see, with the Mandalorian movie doing a little bit of underworld there with the twins and all that, this could be something that is really keying us up to really dive in. And like I said, it could be really fun. And I'm excited to take this to a next step and see more, because I like Dryden Voss as a character. And boy, would it be fun to get a little more, to get a revisit after how many years now?
Well, we're approaching 10 soon. We're approaching, 2018. So we're 8 years out from Solo, a Star Wars story. So we're maybe we're too far out on, the Make Solo 2 movement to actually kind of get that film. If it were, or the series. I know that Lando series is still a thought, or whatever movie. It's not going to happen probably, but it's still in the ether potentially. This could be the avenue. Like I've been saying from the start, is like, depending on how many seasons this goes, and if they do a time jump or something like that beyond that moment in Solo, or just call it a news show, right? Not even Maul Shadow Lord. It could be Maul Crimson Dawn at that point, right? Who's to say? Who's to say this has to be all one series? Cut it up into two, tell one story here, tell a different story there, kind of thing. I'm all for it. And if this is where we lay the seeds for that, is in next week's episode, because they need a ship off world. That's the big deal. The ship that they were planning to use is destroyed, along with most of Maul's mercenary team at that point. So they have no way off unless, maybe they hop on the same ship that Diodaki, Devin, and all of them kind of, or that's the offer, is like, hey, we're here, come with us, kind of deal. And they're all on this ship together, and that's the end of the season. Perhaps is we'll figure it all out in onboard space, and we'll go to Dathomir and have a ball out there and see what happens. I think just the inclusion, it's just fun to hear a name like Dryden Voss. Again, haven't really heard this character's name too often. Saw him briefly in Clone Wars Season 7 when he has that conference call with some of the other members of the Shadow Collective at that point. And I think, I think we discussed earlier, it's just interesting that, when you watch Solo, you're kind of led to believe that that's just like Maul started Crimson Dawn. Like he's red, crimson. Like it just kind of tracks. Like it wouldn't have been someone else that had started it and led it, and then he just kind of takes over it as like the overbearing person at the end of the tunnel. So I'm intrigued to find out more about what this relationship entails, and is what's Maul going to do to eventually become Voss's boss. Mm-hmm. Is Paul Bettany coming back next week? Because I know, he's doing, I believe he's doing that Vision Quest show for Marvel that they're in the works for Disney Plus, and I assume Lucasfilm is involved, and at least Skywalker Sound and ILM are probably involved to some degree because of the Disney connection. Was he just at Skywalker Sound and they just like doing some ADR and like, hey, how about you read some of these lines here for this TV show we're doing, kind of deal? He's like, sure, yeah, and then they recorded and called it a day. So there's a chance that he comes back, and I'm all for it. I want to figure out more here. I need more of this connective tissue to Solo because, like you said, I don't think it got its day in the sun the way that people need. Like it's a phenomenal movie. I sing its praises all the time. And unfortunately, because it came out in a very hefty summer season, people were looking for reasons to not be engaged with Star Wars at that time. So I think, the narrative started shifting post Last Jedi to people doing the red laser beam eyes and all that stuff towards anything Star Wars. It was just a perfect storm. Avengers Infinity War come out weeks before, and they couldn't transition over the merchandise space and targets, and they didn't have like a truly strong campaign. The reshoots for marketing had to influx with everything. Like it was just, it's a miracle that we get it on May 25th, all those years ago at this point. And I think it's time for a reevaluation by the community, and maybe this is the start of that. Much like Clone Wars helped people reevaluate the prequels, and now we live in a renaissance of that age. Maybe more time just needs to pass, and some other ancillary stories to flush those things out. And this could be the start of that. And if we get a greater understanding of like what his yacht is, what that crazy little frog toad that sings in a baritone voice on the yacht ship is there, like, sign me up. I'm intrigued. I want to know more. And hopefully next week is I don't think we'll get the entirety of the answers, but at least it'll lay the seeds for where we end up at, and maybe we'll look at Solo differently as of May 5th.
Wouldn't it be great? It is, as we get through Maul, Shadow Lord, and we start to work towards the 10th anniversary of Solo: A Star Wars Story. Yes, I think it had an uphill battle to climb. Alden, is it Alden Ehrenreich?
Yep.
Did a great job, but like I said, how do you take over for Harrison Ford? But I would say that the world building that show did, and the thing that it had to overcome in order, after the false starts before, and like with that in Rogue One, I think animation's mission is to very easily and very delightfully fill in those gaps and be that glue that has brought not only folks back to the prequels, but back to the others as well. And it just has so much range that it can do, and it comes at a great, price point. I like the fact that also that this series it wasn't all dumped at once. We've had time to kind of go and enjoy, and it's fun to kind of revisit this week after week, and then. Yeah, it's. I wish it was a little longer, but then the podcaster me goes, well, maybe this is fine. This is fine. We get a nice hour and plenty of reasons to find what is it that we found that hey, all you can eat shrimp is back at Red Lobster, including the Marry Me shrimp. And I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of ads. And Disney Plus has got a lot of my eyeballs on ads this month, and so there we go. Everybody wins, but yeah, and then I'll go back to watching Light and Magic every day, like I have been for the last several months.
Yes, I've heard the the Lego set? What Lego set's been advertised through the roof on Maul?
Oh, now your toys make sounds, and the bricks are very expensive in those. But hey, if you don't have $70 to throw at one of those newfangled Lego sets, then by all means get your butt into a Burger King near you that's open. The flame broiled Whoppers are back, and let me tell you, open 24 hours. Get yourself a crown. Get yourself a Mando meal, and I can't wait to start trying to collect these toys. And I'm like, we have a number of Burger Kings near us, and to get my gut ready for the Whopper Fest that is to come.
Now, how does that work? Do you just go straight up to the counter and be like, "Hey, I'm a Star Wars podcaster. Give me all the toys"?
No, as a slightly husky rebel, I have to go. You know what? It's going in. It's going to that. And what I have to do to support my hobby and my fandom, you and I will both forget and not speak of after this, but it's going in my mouth, and in that way, I'll just do myself the. I won't embarrass myself going back to the same one over and over. I'll just go to different ones, and that way they won't know who the fat guy is that's coming in. Just give me, there's only one way to get all these toys, and it's not eBay, folks. I'm going to eat my way through this one.
That's right. It'll be cheaper than getting it via eBay.
No shipping, just gas.
No shipping, and the upcharge, of course, too. They're like, oh, supply and demand. Star Wars fans will pay for anything. Just eat a Whopper too. It's fuel. You need to eat, so might as well get a Whopper or some chicken fries and call it a day at the same time.
Not all of us are going to walk home with that popcorn bucket from the movie, but we can walk home with a couple of Whoppers.
You're not going for the popcorn bucket?
I don't know. I think my son will probably end up getting something. But we have a few viewings as well that I've got. I'll be taking probably the family to one, me to one, maybe mom to one. But yeah, you have to find a home for these things, and so you have to go. All right, we have a stack of buckets over here.
Limited space.
So you got to choose wisely. You have to choose your collectibles wisely.
Choose wisely, indeed. Well, Greg, this has been a fantastic look at Maul 7 and 8, episode 7 and 8, leading up to next week's finale, or as the time of this release, tomorrow. Holy cow.
Yay.
Where can the folks find you if they want to continue the conversation and or check out all of the cool coverage that you've been doing for this show as well?
Well, I've been very blessed to have a lot of folks, including yourself, on the breakfast packs as we've been kind of discussing Maul, Shadow Lord, and Greg and I recorded a one on 7 and 8, and that was after getting Aaron Harris and Mary Purdue and Des Davies the week before, and hopefully we'll have a special guest for our last Maul, Shadow Lord weekly breakfast pack. But yeah, just in craziness, and then just working on a May the 4th. Episode where we've got a lot of discussion. Hopefully we're going to get a little bit from you as we kind of discuss some things. Maybe not. Not.
I think they could be
gone over
arranged.
Just, they can be arranged. But yeah, you can find me on the socials at Rebel Base Card, whether it's Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Substack, and all that, and even on Fantatrax, as I've been writing furiously for the Maul Shadow Lord review pool. Been able to sneak in a few paragraphs here and there. But it's been fun and enjoying it, and getting to talk with folks like yourself.
Ooh, it's always a busy season when you're a podcaster.
Yes.
And then when we have those patches of nothing, you're like, what do we talk about? You go back to the Andors for second review, right? We go to the whiteboard, pull some things out, and you're like, what did I do in a time before? Like all these things happening at the same time. And it's great to have both. It's great when it's not just all at once at the same time like it was last May. It's nice to just have a little bit of a breather, enjoy things, appreciate them for what they are, have a little break of 2 weeks. Big season of Mando, a little break there. D23 will be around the corner, and then probably that Vision show's coming out.
Ahsoka series season 2.
Ahsoka season 2. We'll probably get some trailers for that in the near future. Future's looking bright for Star Wars. A lot of stuff coming around the corner.
Well, and also the fact that having so many different Star Wars podcasts with different focus.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, there's overlap, but I think a lot of great discussions in different areas, whether it's Podcast Stardust, it's doing their Force Awakens, run through. I know, like I said, we're doing that second breakfast, and then you've got reactions. They'll do vintage reactions on occasions. Folks like yourself talking to some fun folks over at the Indie podcast and all the work they're doing. So I think that it takes a village to get through all this. And I think in the in between, where it's not so hyper focused and so furious, that's where we really get to shine and get to put some light on stuff and have a lot of fun.
Agreed. And folks, if you want to continue the fun, guess what? Next week, we're talking about the finale episodes 9 and 10 of Season 1 of Maul Shadow Lord. And we'll be back with a brand new guest on that front. So until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.